Why were you crying?
Oh my gosh, I saw the well, we didn't even see.
Overwhelming.
We didn't even see,
It's
but I saw the
overwhelming.
logo and I went, that's my name. Snow White's up there, and I cried my eyes out.
Like seeing yourself for the first time in full Snow White drag.
She's just not the fairest.
Wrong.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to be an absolutely fun-packed edition today for the Cringe-pocalypse. And you're probably wondering, tuning into this, have you gone back to the 1980s? No, you haven't, but that's my intention entirely. Yes, I look like a reject from Olivia Newton-John's Let's Get Physical. And with ONJ, I would love to have gotten physical with her, but rest in peace. She was my absolute first crush as a wee little boy somewhere in London. But honestly, ladies and gentlemen, I don't talk about just beautiful women on this channel, but also what the hell is wrong with this world and pop culture in general.
They call it Xanadu.
I am Charlton Heston. I am the Amiga Man, the last man on earth. And you, my faithful army of followers, you can join me on this epic journey to fight the wokey dokey idiots out there, because seriously, it is not ending anytime soon.
Thank God it's...
And the longer it takes to end, well, I guess the more content I get to make. Starting off with, Castlevania on Netflix. Now, I haven't watched the first 2 seasons. I've heard they're pretty good. I am somewhat familiar with the video games. Haven't really sat down and played them. But of course, the new show, the new spin-off called Castlevania Nocturne, which is a term for night. And what do? They've got a race-swapped character called Annette, who, by the way, looks like this. I mean, that version right there, Miss Reynard, I would like to play that version, actually. But they've given us this monstrosity right here on the left. And Paul Tassi from Forbes, he has jumped to the defense of Netflix. Not that they're asking for it, of course, but of course Netflix are always asking for it in the face, because seriously, they take an IP, it's good for the first couple of seasons, and then they do the usual ESG nonsense. Of course, why is the Castlevania Nocturne character painted black like the Rolling Stones song? Because it's October. It's Black History Month, the fake month nobody cares about. So, what does Paul Tassi have to say here? Well, he has attempted to claim that the widespread backlash against Castlevania Nocturne is born solely from racism and sexism. Why is it sexism? Because we don't like a woman in the lead? Well, if you paint her black, then maybe people are going to have an objection about it. Frankly, I hate the race swapping nonsense that's going around at the moment, or the gender swapping nonsense. Funny enough, those are actually, the latter part of that, what I've just said, is going to be a prevailing issue in my video today, funny enough. A standalone spin-off from Netflix's core Castlevania series, Nocturne touts itself as an adaptation of the 1994 Konami-produced video game Castlevania Rondo of Blood, and to a lesser extent the seminal Castlevania Symphony of the Night. However, in typical Western adaptation fashion, Nocturne deviates heavily from the source material. How often do we hear that phrase, ladies and gentlemen? From race-swapping Annette to giving Richter's adventure a slight hint of a racial strife, to having the blue-clad hero embarrassingly finish off Orlox, himself also race-swapped, with an exchange of edgy dialogue that would make even Joss Whedon cringe. It takes more. Oh no. Jesus Christ. So this is a still of Annette and Edouard in Castlevania episode 3. Freedom was sweeter. Now, I think this is the episode where Annette gives a speech to white villagers about slavery and how she's going to abolish it. This is a show, believe it or not, where you're supposed to go around killing vampires in a very badass vampirish kind of way. But instead, we're having race-swapped characters telling us we're bad people for supporting slavery. I mean, if they remade Buffy the Vampire Slayer again for a modern-day audience, I think Buffy would go around killing the men who she wants to Me Too rather than killing vampires. Do you see where I'm going with this? So Netflix, they deserve a big kick in the nuts for continuing to do this. I don't think it's the first time, and I don't think it's the last time either. So, and of course, the 46% score on Rotten Tomatoes from the audience has a lot more value to it than the 100% from 14 critics on mainstream media, including, I assume, Paul Tassi, because again, they want that sweet access, don't they? But of course, folks, it gets even weirder with The Little Mermaid. Now, this film was a colossal failure this year. We were told at the time the budget was around $250 million. Now, according to a new report from Caroline Reed, who works for Forbes, the budget for The Little Mermaid rose to $300 million by the end of August last year, 8 months before the movie even opened. Isn't that insane? If you want to know why films are getting so expensive these days, it's not necessarily the overuse of CGI and reshoots and other casting issues or meeting that ESG score. It's really to do with basically marketing. And you know, there's a film that's been out for a week called The Creator by Gareth Edwards and stars John David Washington, Denzel's son. I'm going to see that actually shortly, because that only cost $80 million to make. And people are saying, yes, it's an original IP, but it does give you shades of Blade Runner and Star Wars in between. But I don't care. If it's original and they're trying to bring something new to the plate, I am down for it. I'm going to sit down and watch The Little Mermaid. And obviously a very highlighted, edited reel. I'll try and keep it about 15 minutes, where I'll watch it for the first time and give you my genuine reaction. I'll add commentary as well in between. So hopefully, yes, I know I was priding myself to stay away from that movie, but I'm just going to take another bullet for the team here, because you know what? It has to be done. And speaking of has to be done, Rishi Sunak, our Prime Minister, you might be wondering why I'm featuring him in a podcast about wokeism and everything else. Well, I felt that I wanted to talk about this. It was just very funny that he would stand on the podium and say something that we all know. But you got to hear this, because I actually thought I woke up in a different universe. And Rishi Sunak actually got on stage a couple of days ago and said the following.
In school about relationships. Patience in school about to know what their children are being taught. For parents to know what their children are being taught in school about relationships. Patients should know when hospitals are talking about men or women. And we shouldn't get bullied.
I find this really interesting because, first of all, it could be a bait and switch. You know, we got a general election coming up next year, and perhaps Rishi is saying these things just to get the voters extra ballot paper in, if you know what I mean. But then Rishi's from old-fashioned stock, and I guess the stock he's from doesn't necessarily support the crazy gender ideology out there that is more than one agenda, or should I say one gender. But then again, Rishi has got an agenda, hasn't he? Of course, more ESG right here. What?
That people can be any sex they want to be. They can't. A man is a man and a woman is a woman. That's just common sense.
correct. I mean, look, I've said this before on my channel. When I open up my salutation, it's always ladies and gentlemen. If aliens reveal themselves from other planets, then it'll be ladies and gentlemen and aliens, not the ones from Mexico. Those are completely different aliens altogether. But also, I need to go to another Rishi Sunak video right here, which made me laugh so much. Take it away, Rishi, baby. This is really funny, by the way.
We've had 3 female prime ministers, and I stand before you today as the first non-white leader in our country's history.
Which, by the way, we never voted for Rishi. He was voted for by his own party. But this gets so much more cringe. look. It's still a big sea of white folks, by the way. You know, James Cleverly and the lovely Suella Braverman. It's just that little coffee representation right there. And yes, I can call brownies coffee because I love coffee. It's my favorite drink. I'm your personal dark coffee diversity representative right here on YouTube. I'm not one of these pretentious people that calls himself a brown nerd because, you know, you can't just be a nerd without emphasizing your color, right?
3 generations. What does the Conservative Party offer a family of immigrants? The chance to become Energy Secretary, Business Secretary, Home Secretary, Foreign Secretary.
Look at this chick right here. Hello, you're what, love? Yeah, Cooey.
Even the chance to become Prime Minister.
Oh, hello. Who's this chick right here? I kind of like her. Wow. She's a bit of a stunner.
Yes, Mr. President, and I've brought you back a little present from Thargoidia. Oh, yes, their leader, Gort. I've been looking forward to seeing him. I'm afraid he's not a pretty sight, sir. Good grief, you're right. Ugh, what a horrible mess. Ugh, I've never seen such a hideous face.
So last but not least, folks, a story from Bounding into Comics on the 4th of October. Lord of the Rings screenwriter Philippa Boyens explains how Sam and Frodo have a real, genuine friendship without any political or sexual implications or machinations. The Lord of the Rings trilogy screenwriter Boyens made it abundantly clear that there was no intention to depict Sam and Frodo as sodomites, as many woke activists are attempting to do. In an interview conducted back in 2003 during the promotion for The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, Boyens was asked how the film depicts real sentiment between Sam and Frodo rather than manufactured emotion. She answered, "I think what I like about that is that Sam has an understanding, a shared understanding, which is why we deliberately put in the beginning of the movie Sam's belief there would be a return journey. It was very important. You don't want to palm it, you just want to slip it in there." Careful, Boyens. We didn't want to do a big, huge setup, just getting them there that Sam has an expectation that there will be a return journey. Why it's called Return of the King, isn't it? Boyens continued, "In that, I think that the little scene where he says, 'I don't think there's going to be a return journey,' and Frodo looks at him, something passes between them. Stop it now," which Frodo actually knew already, which is there was no going back. They weren't going to survive this, and that's how they go forward. That's how they proceed, and that's part of their stoicism and heroism as characters. But of course, get to the Tumblr woke activists out there who draw rather stunning interpretations of Sam and Frodo being more than just bedfellows. I mean, you've had it with Tony Stark and Loki as well, where they made them homosexual. And yes, it's fun if you want to do that stuff, but if you're trying to tell an audience, a core fan base, well, this is the version that you must accept in future. No one is going to bat an absolute eyelid, especially yours truly. And of course, like Return of the King or Fellowship of the Ring, the absolute GOAT when it comes to those movies. But of course, folks, if you want to join me on this epic journey of boisterous, bawdry, tawdry, or I don't know, bubbly, busty delights of maidens handing me drinks, handing you drinks, and maybe giving you a subscription to my next video, maybe you can stick right here. Me watching you, you watching me, and maybe coming back for the next video. And you never know, one day I too could be Prime Minister of England, the first Asian Prime Minister with spiky hair and a 1980s exercise headband.